Hey, it's time for a new episode of Ryan on Gaming. Today's topic comes from my good buddy, Brian. I've been friends with this guy for a long time on PSN, before I even did YouTube. My man Brian, good topic. He says, "Hey Ryan, how important do you think story is compared to gameplay? Destiny's constantly bashed due to its lack of story despite being primarily an online shooter. Dark Souls 1 and 2 are praised even though they have virtually no story despite primarily being single-player experiences. Bloodborne is a spiritual successor to the Souls games and will likely have the same lack of story. Not many seem concerned about this despite bashing on Destiny, Dying Light, and Far Cry 4 for lack of a good story. Thoughts?" Oh yeah, Brian, I got some thoughts. My initial thought right off the bat is that your comment, your question stems from the very essence of what the games industry is it's filled with a lot of people that usually bitch and contradict themselves. I mean, you're watching, a YouTube video of like Destiny or something, you look at the comments, someone bitching about Destiny, go to an IGN article about some game, and someone's in there complaining about something else. But it is still a good question in terms of what was the relation and everything, how important is story and whatnot, and the easy answer is what is the game going for, what is the developer trying to do with their game. Clearly video games are video games. Gameplay, first and foremost, should be a pretty important aspect of your game, but I think it's completely fair in certain respects where a game is trying to tell a very linear story, that gameplay doesn't have to be outstanding. It just needs to be there, get the job done, and still stay compelling in a sense. But the compellingness also can come from the fact that the story is interesting, and therefore the player wants to keep advancing the story. A good example always is David Cage games. Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, Indigo Prophecy. Those games aren't like, there's no like shooting, there's no like driving or anything. It's very, very basic gameplay. Very basic controls, quick time events, analog stick to move the character around, open doors, hug people, pick conversation options. Very, very basic stuff. It's not really a gameplay game, but at the same time you still have to play it to progress, and the real compellingness of that game comes from... compellingness, is that even a word? The real compellingness of that game is that it's the story. You want to keep advancing it, you want to see what happens, you want to see what's going on. The Order, another recent example. It's a very formulaic game. It's very, very standard. There is nothing special about the shooting of that game. Nothing special about like the cover-based shooting, any sort of mechanics and whatnot. Like, sure, the guns are fun, but it's a very standard gameplay game. The real lure of that game, at least for some people, because again, The Order was like bashed for a lot of stuff, but the real lure of that game, if you're that kind of person, is maybe you're digging what the story's going on in The Order. Maybe you're really digging just how pretty the game looks, and that's what's keeping you going. It's like, what are people looking for? But at the very basic core, of course, video games are all about gameplay. So yeah, games like Dying Light, games like Dark Souls, Souls games. Yeah, I mean, they can have a really crappy story, but like if it's really fun, then people are probably going to keep playing it. I mean, I don't play Mario Party for the story. I play it because it's really fun. You know what I'm saying? So, especially with the example of like Souls games. I mean, that's like very like role playing, like very inventory systems, like it involves stats and stuff, plus it's very difficult, so it attracts that sort of niche audience. I mean, there's a lot of things about that game that make it really awesome, despite the fact that it's lacking in one area that many people would deem unimportant. Story can be very unimportant when the whole point of video games is that you want to have fun, and if you're having fun, then story might not be the big goal that the developer wants to accomplish. Sometimes a story just needs to be there, just to get something done. Little Big Planet, play Little Big Planet for the story. You play it because it's fun. But Little Big Planet has a story. It's this cute little story about a little sack person, the Negativatron in Little Big Planet 2. That's not provocative by any means, but you play it because it's fun. If games are going for story, they're going for story, and then you can really judge it on that point. You mentioned Destiny. Sure, people bash Destiny for not having a story, but the game has like millions of concurrent players. People constantly like go hard on Destiny. Oh, it's not what I wanted. It's this, it's that. The game has millions of players. People like that game. So, despite the fact that it's weak in one area, it's a very unimportant area for some people, especially the fact that it is an online game. It's all relative, and you got to figure most of the people that are complaining or bashing about a game story or whatnot or what have you, you know, they probably never liked it to begin with. They probably don't like the game at all. They don't like it. Maybe they rented it or bought it full price and they're just really burned on the fact that it's not what they wanted, so they come up with a whole bunch of reasons, and story is probably one of them. I think I speak for most people when I say story can be pretty unimportant when you're really having fun with the game. How many times can you think to yourself that you've been playing a really fun game and go, oh, there's just no story though, I don't know if I can keep going, but you're like having fun? You know, I mean, that I've never found myself in that situation. I can't imagine many people have. In fact, for a story-driven game that has very standard gameplay, very formulaic gameplay, it seems like they are the kind of games that have more hurdles to get over. Tons of people do not like The Order. Tons of people do not like David Cage games. Whereas tons of people like the Souls games. Recently, Dying Light is like, that story is totally cheesy and dumb, but like tons of people love it. It's a really fun game. I guess it's a big hurdle if you are doing a story-driven game. Of course, in a perfect world, you have two great things like that. You have a really awesome, fun game, and you have a really compelling story. And when you have those two put together, then you've got a really Class A game, in my opinion. Gameplay is king. I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm sure many people have heard that before. Video games, since the very beginning of video games, has been all about gameplay and having fun. So the very element of games should always be, how fun is it? How compelling is it? It's just, you know, modern games nowadays are telling stories, which is great. That's just a new element to games. That's something new that they offer to you. But what's great about games is that if they don't have a great story, at least they can still be fun, and therefore you're still enjoying what it is about games, having fun. I hope that is the thoughts you were looking for. I hope I gave them to you in a insightful manner. I feel like when I record these videos, I'm not articulating my thoughts properly, not coming off as smart as I'd like to be. Not that I consider myself smart, but I'd like these to sound smart, and I never feel like I am coming off as smart. And that's because, again, I suck at articulating my thoughts. I am not good at telling people things at all. Clearly, as you can tell. That's all for me. I'll see you in my next video.